Present.
Paul J. Brasco. Kathy Ann Harris.
Present.
Randall J. LeBlanc. Daniel P. Romard.
Present.
Carlos A. Vidal.
Present.
3 present, 2 absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Make a motion to accept the minutes from April 17th.
So moved.
Aye.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Minutes have been approved.
Chairman, can you announce the filming?
Yes, can, before we move any further, anyone in the chamber going to be videotaping this meeting? If so, can you please identify yourself?
Chris Gamble will be recording the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Gamble. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're the first in that.
Yes, Mr. Burke. So new matters.
New matters. Paving resolution. It was submitted by Councillor Randy LeBlanc.
All right. Mr. LeBlanc, I believe, is not here. Has anyone heard, have you, has Mr. LeBlanc said anything to Mr. Burke not being available to come today?
No.
All right. Should we make a motion to table it? Or
Motion to table.
motion to table? All the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Okay. The payment resolution has been tabled.
Mr. Garvin? Isn't Mr. Garvin in the chamber?
He was coming in.
You're supposed to be
Coming in to talk about expanding parking.
I'll go.
I talked to him today, he said he was going to be here.
Okay.
Can we take the crosswalk down to table and do that?
All right, someone make the motion to,
I make a motion to take the crosswalk proposal off the table.
okay, on the motion is the resolution crosswalk safety, correct?
Crosswalk safety.
Okay. On the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Councillor Harris. Oh, I'm sorry. Councillor.
Make a motion to hear from an non-committee member.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So, the clerk and the clerk of this committee, who's also the acting city clerk, sent a communication to all councilors asking them to put their list together of crosswalks that they would like us to send over to the traffic commission with a request that the traffic commission have the traffic engineer to look at to see if they are good candidates for what I keep referring to as freestanding signs. What do you call them?
Portable crosswalk?
Portable crosswalk signs that say yield to pedestrian, state law, something along those lines. So the clerk Vidal has a substantial listing that he's received from former Councillor Waddick, from myself, and I saw Councillor Mackin. I reached out to her because I knew she had some stuff sent. So are those the 3 that you've heard about? I think that we need to get that over to the traffic commission. I would ask the Ward 1 councilor and the Ward 8 councilor, do you think you have some things you want to add to that? I know that it's been crazy. When can you get them?
Tonight.
She's been running around like crazy.
Well, you might want to explain why you said tonight.
So the reason why tonight, excuse me, is through you, to Madam President, is I actually forward this off an email already because I thought we were sending it directly to traffic, so I just need to resurrect the
okay,
email.
all right, so that's, all
Send
right,
it
so
back
it's
to
not a
you.
whole lot of
Very
work for you.
communications, so.
Excellent, excellent, so that's great. So then you'll have Councillor Harris's list. How about yours?
I will have this by tomorrow.
Okay, all right. So I would like, if Councillor Harris, if you would move a request that the clerk compile the list, clean it up, remove any duplication there might be, but then send it off to the traffic commission with the request to have the traffic engineer look at it.
I'll make that motion. that we can, all councilors consolidate their lists, send them over to the clerk, clerk will dedupe those lists.
The clerk already has.
Okay,
So once he gets that, right, he'll put it together and that will get over to the traffic commission. Because if we don't get on an agenda quickly, we're gonna be up against the summer break. So that needs to go out.
So I make that motion. Provide that.
Okay.
Thank you. On the motion, I just have a question to the clerk. So we're still missing about four, we have four here.
Not everybody's wanting to submit them.
Okay, so it's something that there were,
And it's not to say that we can't send another one, but something's gotta get over, we've gotta get on the docket.
so we're gonna send a partial list.
This is, as far as I'm concerned, it's a comprehensive list, because people were told this was going out, it was done.
Okay, so
Again,
not hearing from all the work councilors.
right,
Okay,
yeah,
okay, all right.
right. So does the clerk think that he can get that over by the end of the week?
Yeah, as long as,
Right, exactly, everybody, and I don't know, Councilor LeBlanc, do you have anything you wanna add to that list?
It's the freestanding slow down.
I added the 48 Pine Street, I added 48 Pine Street, I added 101 Prospect Street, which is the senior housing, those were the two senior housing locations. And then I added a general phrase requesting that the crosswalks in and around our schools be looked at.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the council from Ward 1, was Forest Street added on that list? Adventure Street?
I have not submitted
It's not
anything,
made.
but
Okay.
I was thinking about Forest Street
Okay.
one, most of mine were gonna be around, I have a lot of schools in Ward one, so I was
Okay.
focusing on that, but
All right,
Forest
thank you. I'll
Street.
visit the list and get
Okay.
back to you. Thank you for asking.
All right, so Councilor Harris made the,
Motion.
okay.
On the motion, to submit, for the clerk to compile a list for what we have so far and submit that, send that over to the traffic commission, is that my
That's it.
understanding?
Get on the agenda.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Make a motion to table.
All right, motion to table, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no, the ayes have it. The crosswalk safety has been tabled.
Randall J. LeBlanc.
President.
President.
There we go. All right.
What do you want to do now?
We are-
How many do you want to do Councilor Romar's resolution?
So Glenn, since you weren't here at 6 o'clock, we tabled your paving
Yes.
resolution, so I want to find out if you want to take off the table and discuss that now, or you want to discuss the expanding parking near the train station. It seems that Mr. Garvin's here to speak on that.
Why don't we do the paving resolution now?
Okay, has anyone been invited to speak on that, or just you going to be just discussing that?
Myself and we could hear from our committee member Garvin while he's here, so I'd like to make a motion to take it off the table.
Mr. Garvin, have you been informed about this?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Okay, so
We can hold and make a request for.
All right, so in that case, we'll allow you to speak on the resolution and make the request to, as the right parties, or if it's Mr. Garvin, for him to be prepared, which I think it is important, make sure we get the right info, make sure you're prepared for such a question. All right, on the motion to pay the resolution, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Councilor LeBlanc, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Basically, we have a paving moratorium of 5 years. And it's not a bad thing at all, and I commend Councilor from Ward 8, who did a lot of work on it, with, I think, Councilor from Ward 6, I believe. And they made this in, you know, not necessarily to take away anything to that, but maybe to add to it is, one of my thoughts is, being on Public Works and Public Safety, is we see that people come in, and if it's in the moratorium, they come in and they add on 1725. Basically, when they come in, you know, 95% of the time, they come in and we pass them a piece of, they come in and we hear from them, and their lawyers come in, and the contract comes in, and we pass them a piece of paper and say, make 1725 part of your thing. If that's all we're doing, we could sort of set up standards, you know, depending on how the council feels on it, where that's just the standard in the city, and I believe Newton does that, where that's just part of the paving standards, and they actually allow the Director of Public Works to have a little bit of input in it, where he has some flexibility, where if it's only something that's on the edge, he can say you don't have to go curb to curb because it's a high traffic area and that would have more impact. He has a little bit of leeway. And, you know, even if it was a road that was paved 6 years ago, some of the work going on in the streets is terrible. When you drive down and, you know, they sink a year later, and even, I think it is Newton, you have to post a bond, meaning you have some options. You can go in front of the city council, you can post a bond, where after a year, the Public Works comes back and inspects it, and if it's sunk or settled, or they did shoddy workmanship, you need to rip it up and do it over, or you don't get your bond back. If not, they keep the bond and they do it. So there's things that we could do that's easier. They could pull a permit, could be a $200 permit fee and an inspection. They also have the ability where the Public Works Director, if it's within the moratorium, if he feels and he gets some feedback from residents, he can say no. I'm saying no at this time. You need to appeal to the city council. And then this process would happen. If that makes any sense. So we could save ourselves a lot of time and everyone a lot of time by maybe doing this, but it's open to discussion, and I wanted to bring this in to start to evaluate this and see what basically the general sentiments of this committee and or the colleagues on the city council is. And I'm open to any discussion on it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Councilors, anybody anything would like to add? Yes, Councillor Harris.
So I just wanna kind of explore kind of what your thoughts were through you to Councillor that provided this motion. I mean, can we just talk through what would change process-wise? So when we talk about paving resolutions and we talk about 1725, are we talking about not reviewing those 1725 street openings, or still reviewing 1725 street openings as a matter of process and simply standardizing the paving requirements based on the type of street opening that we're talking about?
If this, and we could hear from the Director of Public Works, but
Yeah.
if it were like in Newton, basically they became the paving standards if you were opening a street within the 5-year moratorium. 1725 is their standard. So when you go down to Public Works and you say, I want to do a street opening, and it's within the moratorium, he says, great, you need to comply with all these. Do you have any problems with that? And it's just that's the standard, pretty much is what when they come in here, we just pretty much put this on the record, apply it, stamp it 95% of the time, and send it out, I think, in the whole time it's been done. And that's gonna eliminate, I didn't know, blah, 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 it's not on the website, the streets aren't listed, whatever. This is the standard. So you know, it takes all that out of it. It's just, this is what you need to do. If you want to open up our street in a moratorium, you need to pay for these standards. And there could be some alternatives, meaning this is the standard. If you don't like that, you can appeal to Public Works. You're welcome to come here anytime. You don't have to go here. And there could be options. You could do this. You could post a bond and do the other and have an inspection, or you can come here. It could be, or we can streamline and speak with, definitely speak to the director.
I know there are other questions. I want to just give one follow-on question. When you say post a bond, if you don't mind, could you just further clarify how that maps into the process change? Because today we exercise that vetting, if you will, and standardization through Public Works and the 1725 opening. So how, just because
so you go down, okay, if you go down to Public Works and you say, I want to open this street up, and the building department's going to know, their job is to say, when you go to do this, yep, you got to go to engineering, or you have to go wherever for, because you're within the moratorium, you need to go down here. So you go to Public Works and you say, I want to do the street opening, and they say, okay, you can, this is within the moratorium, you need to post a $10,000 bond. It's, you know, it's per square foot. So the equivalent value is $10,000. So you post a bond of 10 grand for a 1-year period. So you go and you do your thing, you do your paving. Then the Public Works goes out and they inspect it, and they look, and this is, I'm pretty sure I was done, they go and look at it, and the patch is sunk. All right, you need to do it over, and then you get your bond back. Well, when you inspect it and sign off, you get your bond back. And if you walk away, or you go out of business, then the city takes over that position. And contracts that dig in the street need to be bonded anyways. but this is an additional bond for just this particular patch. So we have 3 or 4 bonds out here, and then they get their money back.
No further questions?
Thanks very much.
Councillor Romard.
Thank you. Actually, through you, Mr. Chairman, through the clerk, don't we have some paving standards that we provide already, or do those something we need to create? I thought we had paving standards.
Yes, I think the CPW director has, Paul Brasco.
Present.
I believe the CPW director has paving standards. There are standards within 1725, which is that it would be curb to curb, and it sets a length requirement that I'm having trouble remembering off the top of my head, the minimum length requirement. And then we usually add special conditions of flowable fill and
Yeah.
infrared seam treatment. So.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Chair, then to the maker of the resolution. Have you seen those standards? Do you have them?
I don't have them handy, but I have seen them and familiar with them.
Can we all get a copy, and get that to the clerk, we'll get a copy of all of them? So the CPW standards, the 1725 standards, and our special standards. And then in terms of posting the bond from your private work, you've done that in Newton?
I have not done it.
Oh, yeah. Do you know the process of how that is? Is it, does Public Works take care of it, or do they go to the Treasury Department and post the bond, or do you know?
Public Works takes care of it, as far as I know.
Okay. Is there a way to find that out? Do you know someone over there that can provide that? That would be helpful. I'm just curious as to where that administration of this
Yes,
comes in.
and if I may, as the, because you have a moratorium, the roads that fall within the moratorium can have the, I guess you'd call it the extra steps. And so if it falls within the moratorium, it's this. If it's not within the moratorium, it's the standards. And given the Director of Public Works a little bit of leeway as far as infrared seams, I think it's, the clerk recalls, is it National Grid that doesn't like the infrared seams? Some of them they can't do some of the gas leak detection.
Yeah.
So if it's National Grid coming in for a gas one, not an electric one, they might be able to, they might exclude the infrared seams in that standard because it is for a gas that they don't detect.
I thought it was the flowable fill, but flowable fill they can't get through, whatever. Okay, well, I guess if we can get copies of all those standards, take a look at them, and you can provide just a process around the bond piece, that would be helpful. And then, were you planning to have the CPW director come
Absolutely, I
in?
was gonna make that request because he could definitely answer the questions a little bit better than myself on procedures that they would like to see.
Yeah.
how
And then
that-
the last question is, what difference does it make whether it's in the moratorium or not? I mean, shouldn't every patch be the same, whether it's a 5 years issue or not, right?
There.
Yeah, and then we could just go through, and that's why this is, I'm all open to discussion, and this was, I brought the resolution in to do exactly this. Maybe the whole standard gets changed to something to a higher level across the board.
Yeah.
And
I think it
and
might
then
be
it's just,
easier.
it's just done, easy and simplified,
Yeah.
and that might be perfectly fine.
It might be easier to pass and understand and get through the council without mixing the two, I would think.
I'm open to all suggestions
Okay.
and having the director in, because he might tell us, well, I can't enforce this, I can't,
Yeah.
permits are out, or whatever it is. I think we should have him in and anybody else we think
Yeah.
at the same meeting if we think we should have, Director Garvin
Yeah.
also.
Okay,
If he
so
feels-
let's
ask
think
him if
about
he
that, but
feels-
I would think
that it
about
should be
taking the
here.
moratorium out of this, so that we're dealing with paving standards, no matter moratorium or not. And then if he or the committee here has issues with the moratorium in those 5 years, we'll take that up separately. Let's not kind of muddy the waters, because I think to have standards is a great idea.
Easier is better, and I'll also put in, like, Main Street was paved, and I think a year later, Well, I don't know the outside contract, I don't know anything about it. We went through and they cut up all the manhole covers and they all got done over. And there's a patch around all the manhole covers. Why? Because they sank, because of whatever reason that wasn't done. Should have lasted more than a year. They all sank and the city went back and cut them and repatched them. And so you're looking at that, I'm driving, I'm saying, why did that just happen? Because of a, you know, I don't know if it was the workmanship or lack of fill or standards or what have you, but all stuff, and you drive down and there's bumpy roads that are just patch paths that are just terrible.
Yeah.
And that's was where I was trying to go with this.
And then last question, I don't know, would this impact rules and ordinances, or we're just coming up with standards for paving and such that we wouldn't have to go through rules and ordinances? I don't know if there's any ordinance change, it's just a submission
I'll
of.
speak to that.
Do we know that?
Yeah, Councillor
You all set?
President.
Yeah.
You're all set? Yes. Councillor.
I mean, I'll touch on that. Thank you for explaining it, because when I read the resolution, I wasn't sure what it was. But if I understand based upon your explanation, for a 1725 street opening, which is an ordinance, which requires that one come before the council if they wish to rip up a street within the moratorium. That's what that is. The standards are there. The standards aren't an issue. It's curb to curb, and it's very clear. And again, as the clerk said, sometimes we go above and beyond and we say flowable fill, or we say whatever. I think what I heard you say is this would eliminate the need for anybody looking to tear up a street within 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, to come before the city council. As long as they're going to the public works office and they're responsible for ensuring that they meet the standard, correct?
That is
Do I
correct,
understand?
and one of my
That
thoughts
was the
is,
intent.
and he could have some leeway, because he's gonna know when it should be curb to curb, when it should, he's gonna know a little bit more than the public works
Well,
department.
the standard
what it
is
should
curb
have.
to curb. The standard is curb to curb. Okay, so I do understand correctly. So, and again, I mean, I think it's good. I think it's a good discussion. I'm open to it. Some of the things that you should think about. First off, we haven't approved every 1725 street opening. I know it might seem like that, but
Well, except for one.
I could think of one that we didn't approve. So there are sometimes reasons that in particular ward councilors don't want these things to happen. We're getting a lot of them before the council right now because the law changed relatively recently. Many were caught up in the transition, the communication wasn't perfect. My concern with this is, okay, you don't have to go before the city council. They're gonna be coming in, you're gonna have a new street, and they're gonna be coming in 6 months. They're gonna be coming in a year. And that's now on the public works director. It's a lot to put on the public works director.
If the paving patch
Yep.
is done properly,
And again, you're an at-large counselor. If I'm a ward counselor, whether the paving patch is done properly or not, if I just got 6 new streets, I don't want them all paving patched in a year to 2 years. I just don't. I didn't want them within 3 years. That's why we voted to change the standard to 5 years. The other thing that I think, just politically speaking, as a consideration, the mayor, has the mayor vetoed some of our 1725s?
While I've been a ward, a chair, I have received one veto.
Right.
Mhm.
So, and what she's indicated is, you've got a law. It says 5 years. You have not demonstrated to me really why we should be doing this in less than 5 years. And I do get what you're saying. For the most part, we have approved them as long as they meet the standard. But again, I think changing this and changing the whole model, I think it opens it up, and they're gonna be in here in, you know, in a year, in 2 years, in 3
Yeah.
years, and you're gonna have a city of patches. And again, maybe good patches, because the CPW director is out there checking them, but what we have now,
Do you think that they don't come in because they have to come here? Do you think less people are gonna apply because they have to come to the city council or not?
I think maybe they don't come in if they have to come here, and I think that would speak to whether or not they really need it. But anyway, those are, I mean, it's complex. It's not to say that it's not a good thing to look at, but there are standards, and the standards are clear.
Think-
Have you talked to the Public Works Director already about this?
Mhm.
And is he amenable to taking on this responsibility?
He was amenable to coming in and having a discussion and going through this whole routine. He definitely encouraged it, and how we left it was just bring in a resolution, and that's why that was sort of boilerplate, is just bring it in so we can get something on the table, and then we can come in and work on it, and all the concerns can sort of be addressed. And like I said, I'm more than open to any of it and all of it, and I think it can be streamlined a little bit, because for 95% of the time, we're wasting the people's time.
Right. So this, again, in effect, I mean, and I didn't get this from reading it, but in effect, what this does is it takes 1725 off the books. You don't need to come to the city council to get approval for a street opening. That's what it does.
And we should allow, you know, try to allow something in there, because it's not one shoe size fits all, where he can send them over to here. And we will have to have a discussion with him to see what that looks like.
May I
I'm good.
just want to speak on this? There's a reason why, whether it's a 3, 5, 10-year moratorium is in place, and I think, again, we're looking at, I've heard both sides, whether it's just the paving, how it's done, and the guidelines of paving, and whether we're going to attach the 5-year moratorium. I think this opens up a good discussion to have a longer discussion on this particular issue. But I do feel that this committee is here to make sure we see that the money that we have spent repairing our roads recently resurfaced, we keep a handle on that. This is not to fine or to make builders or people who need to come into the city to rip up our roads angry. It's for us to keep an eye on things, make sure they do things correctly. And I think we should definitely have a discussion on the paving aspect of it. However, I think that a moratorium, perhaps because I was personally a proponent of the moratorium being a 5-year, it gives us, this body, the chance to see what kind of work they're going to be doing, and they're going to be doing it right. I think the discussions here, I think we're going to be bringing us some for us to share, for whether it's from Newton, whether our documents that we're going to see, and see how it's done in different places, see if it applies to the city of Waltham. And if so, we'll have that discussion, and whether we're going to bring CPW, whether we're going to bring the engineering department, or we're going to bring the traffic, whoever we need to, but we can have the discussion. I don't see why not. I just want to make sure I get that on record. You all said, Councillor.
I am, thank you.
Second time around, Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the commission. I'm going to echo the ward count. I'm a ward councilor, right? So I'm going to talk on behalf of ward issues, especially Ward 8. You drive down. We just had a 1725 street opening on 158 Ash Street, and the proposal. I'm just going to say this. Take a step back. Very rarely do we just come in and it's a straight up street opening. Oftentimes it's a demolition with a special permit that needs consideration of utilities removed, curb cuts, significant traffic downtime, impact to neighborhoods. I think straight up 1725 street openings with no additional construction or appendages to that request can fall into this. I think anything else that is going to have impact to the community, that's why they represented someone who could be their voice.
I would agree with that.
And we have to make sure that people have access. A lot of the south side, those kids are walking to school. The Whittemore is only 3 or 4 blocks from Moody Street. 4 blocks from Moody Street. It's not that far, right? So a lot of these streets where development's happening, we have to make sure those sidewalks are available and open, because they're walking sidewalks for children who walk. Second is, the congestion and density of the area, we often have to look at that. So as long as we look at, I would consider least common denominator factors, where you don't need to govern a straightforward request and there's no other appendages, I would be in support of that being standardized with a standard communication. But if there's anything relative to curb cuts, special permits, development, anything that requires communication, I think is important. Even if we go with a smaller footprint of a 1725 streamlined process, because we want it to be easy to do business with the city, we definitely want that. I want to also have standard, a mechanism to communicate to constituents. So if you're gonna open the street, and we're gonna do this through DPW, my recommendation also, we need to speak with the DPW chairperson, manager, director. But I think part of their job is gonna be to get standard communication out. So we're either gonna use social media, we're gonna use posts, we're gonna use something. We've gotta continue to communicate to constituents. I think, you know, this change might be welcome for a lot of people trying to do business with the city, but we have to make sure also that we don't have 3 or 4 street openings on a street in the same week. I mean, these things can happen when we remove what we perceive to be bottlenecks and things, we have unintended consequences. So those are my only comments, and I think they should come into how we vet and come up with a streamlined process. I'm not opposed to a streamlined process, but I think there's almost use cases for when you could go down a straightforward, handled by DPW, CPW, the 1725 street opening, and their standard mechanism of communication to constituents, and maybe an alert to the ward councilor so that we can at least alert our community, you know, that these things are happening. Those are my only comments, and I appreciate you being open to those.
And a definite alert, I absolutely like that idea to the ward councilor, and it's not to do that. And, you know, one of the things is the city's doing a lot of the patch jobs. We have, you know, sewer lines going in, gas lines, National Grid, NSTAR. They're all opening them regardless of whatever year it was, if it's 6 months, 2 months, 10 months. And I don't know that any of it's gonna make a better patch job except for DPW. And one of the reasons I mentioned a permitting process is a permit and an inspection. And a lot of times, some of them don't show up for a year later. So we can have them in here and we can pick on them and everybody can yell at the guy and tell him, you gotta do a better patch job in our city. This thing is 2 months old, but unless we're standing in the street, if you guys wanna take your suits off and we wanna go stand in the street and watch the guy patch and make sure he compacts his fill, I don't know that it's very helpful. And the permit and the inspection, and I'm not trying to make it easy, yes, I am trying to streamline it, but I'm not trying to make it easier for a contractor to come into the city year 7 and do a lousy job. I don't mind if the paving moratorium, we make our standards tighter all over the city, because if you drive through Newton, the patches don't look like our city, they're better. If you go down to Mashpee, down the Cape, I watched roads that are brand new with patch jobs. Beautiful work, and I don't know if they got better contractors down there, or they're not in a hurry, or what the deal is, but the patches were wonderful. And I'm saying, why is it that we drive down our roads 2 years, 3 years, 5 years later, with the moratorium without, and you know, your ball joints pop off your car? So I'm not trying to, you know, this is not a benefit to contractor thing for me. This is the patching job in our city are terrible. City included, no one's exempt. I don't know, is the city exempt from these regulations?
No, you gotta.
Okay, so, and I'm not blaming the city for terrible patch jobs, I'm just saying across the board, it just, I don't know, maybe it's me, it just seems like there's patch jobs all over the city that are terrible by all parties concerned. And hopefully we can make this better, and like I said, I'm amenable to working on it any which way, hearing from the director, he can tell us what works, what doesn't work, you know, Randy, that's crazy, whatever it is, I'm perfectly fine with it all, and that's the intention of this whole thing. And like I said, I applaud the work that has been prior done on this, and sometimes after you do something, and then it's been enacted, you know, a couple of years later, you get to make some beneficial adjustments as you see, you know, what worked, what didn't work, and hopefully get it, you know, better, and that's my intent on it. I thank you for everybody.
I don't know if my answer was 100% clear. Emergencies are exempt, so gas and
Correct.
water emergencies are exempt.
Thank you, Councillor LeBlanc. Thank you. Anything else on the matter? You're making a...
I would like to make a request that we have the Director of DPW in. And if we could send him a copy of the resolution prior?
Any thoughts on also Bernie McDonald Street down?
Yeah,
Is that
actually, yes, he knows a lot about paving.
Usually,
Director?
we usually only invite the director.
Right.
Okay.
You can speak on behalf.
Actually, ask the director if he thinks it would be pertinent to have him here, or not. And he can answer.
Matt and the staff, you think?
Mm-hmm. And staff that might provide support.
Okay, sure.
Gonna vote on the request?
Yeah, let's make the, on the request, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Thank you. Any other requests? You want to make a motion to table?
I'd like to make a motion to lay that matter back on the table.
All right, on the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. You guys have it. You wanna,
I would like to make a motion to take the expanding parking resolution near the train station at Moody Street off the table.
all right, on the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Councillor LeBlanc makes a motion to hear from an committee member, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Mr. Garvin. I believe you're here on the Moody Street, the train station parking, correct?
Correct.
All right. You got the floor.
If I may, pass out report from the last traffic commission.
Sure.
Okay. So, to summarize, the last time I was in here, there were 2 questions to me. One, can we make some changes to the wall at the back of the dog pound? If we move that wall back, how many spaces can we fit in there? And then subsequent to that, there was a question, can we add some additional parallel metered spaces beyond the westerly platform? So taking the first question first, I calculated that about 15 parking spaces could be added if we demolish or move back that wall and put in some perpendicular spaces. Not that I would recommend it. I think that's a good location for those spaces, given the distance it is away from where all the other spaces are and the lack of available lighting, and that there's some industrial uses in between, that even with improved lighting, I think that might feel a little uncomfortable to the owners of the cars to walk, especially in the winter time, down to their car that way. I guess going to the second question about adding additional parallel spaces in between.
Excuse me.
Sure.
One quick question on what was the length of the dog pound land, the width?
135 feet.
And you can only get 15 spaces in 135 feet?
With perpendicular, if we just add perpendicular spaces right there,
Okay.
one row of that, yes.
Okay.
So as for the second question, I don't really have enough information to answer that. That property, the railroad lot property, it's owned by the MBTA. The city leases it for $1 a year with the agreement that, you know, we can enforce parking, can put up paid parking. But it's a little bit unclear, number one, what is the official boundary of that property? The city doesn't have a clear record of that, and the MBTA doesn't have a clear record of that. So for example, if you look at the very last page, I took a few photos today. So the top photo is taken close to Moody Street, and the paid parking spaces are on the left of the photo. But as you see, there's a few, like 5 or 6 vehicles along the right that are right against those buildings. Historically, the city doesn't enforce those spaces. the understanding was that that is part of the private property, and any vehicles there are really not on what the city is leasing. However, given the couple surveys that I have seen along there, it appears that the MBTA property line is right up against the building, but we don't really have a clear record of that. So there are some spaces that it's a little bit unclear where we can enforce and where we can't. The second photo is that westerly platform, and the very last space that we do have a sign and we enforce. And you can see the uses just beyond that. There's a couple of industrial buildings with some loading docks and some other vehicles that park, they actually park diagonal up against those buildings. So I think to get to the answer of that question, we would have to have a better understanding of, does the MBTA have an agreement with these buildings that'll allow them to park in there? And I don't have that information, so I think that would require some research to get that information. The third picture is the next property beyond those two industrial properties, where the width of that lot narrows considerably. And I think in that stretch, even if we were able to add parking on the left, we couldn't do it because there wouldn't be enough room to have vehicles safely travel past through them. And then the last picture is the wall at the dog pound itself. And as I said, that's 135 feet long there. So in order to really answer the question, I would need some additional information, a survey of the actual line, property line, and then an understanding of, does the MBTA have an agreement with those industrial uses for that portion of that lot?
Quick question, have you asked the mayor about any of this, or no?
No.
Okay, and let's, in theory, let's go back to in theory and go back to the need. Winter, summer, Moody Street parking, train station parking, Cooper Street being done, the hotel, 99 rooms being finished, the growth of the city. How many spots short in this area do you think we are morning, noon, night?
The lots right next to the train station, so the railroad lot and the Carter Street lot, get filled every day with the commuters. So, there are different users that use different lots. This part of the city is really heavily used by the people who park and get on the train going to Boston. We have a deficit of parking spaces right here, definitely. So I think there is a need for increased parking spaces right adjacent to the train station. I think the dog pound is, in my view, too far removed. But I think if we could get more parking spaces right near Carter, Felton, Moody, that would be where we have the greatest need for those parking spaces.
Okay, if you go to picture number 2.
Yep.
Councillor LeBlanc, before you go any further, let's make sure that we only got 2 minutes left. And
Okay.
we're running late, I want to make
I'll
sure
make it
we're
really quick then.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for
We're
that.
finished at 7.
Picture number 2, down the end, all those cars on the right-hand side. If we were to do a survey, figure out where they went, spend some taxpayers' dollars. From where that train station is, if those were all on the right, what is the time limit of the cars that could park there, and could you get a whole bunch more cars? Because those people that are parking there for free, not that I'm, targeting them, but if the metered spots, and we could gain 30 spots on the left side and have them also pay for the spots, they can just go on a metered spot, provided you can pay for 10 hours for $3 or whatever the number is, so that they're not getting ticketed for working an 8-hour shift. Is that all feasible?
So my suspicion on that second photo, the cars that you see on the far end that are diagonally parked, I don't think those are commuters parking there. I think those are related to these industrial uses. So I think the workers for those uses, buildings are allowed to come in and just park there. So if we were to add additional commuter spaces on the left side, that would displace those vehicles. I think they may find additional room on their property to park, but that would probably result in an increase of parking supply for the commuters, which is what the purpose is.
Okay, I guess if you could get the net result of what that would, because they could simply park in the pay spots too if they didn't have any. What's the net gain for us in that area if the dog pound seems to be too far away? That would be, I guess, my question.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if that would violate some agreement that the MBTA has with those particular buildings. They may have an agreement.
Okay. All right, I yield the floor back. Thank you much.
Any other councilors have any questions?
Oh, still here for off meeting now? I think Councilor Mack.
All right, let's give Councilor Macken, Ward 7, Councilor.
Thank you
You have the
for
floor. Thank you.
recognizing me, and I have, thank you for coming in and for the comments. A lot of what I was considering is covered in this, but I did want to ask if any of you are aware of what the time frame is for the uses the mayor is considering. I'm asking because it seems that if we're going to do a warming shelter and an open air market in that space, that might impact both the walkability of the area and the desirability of having some parking available so people could access the market and other services.
I do agree with that.
Yeah. So I don't know if the mayor made any comments as to the time frame that aren't included in the packet here. So.
I don't believe she did.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then I just wanted to echo, I bike around Waltham a lot at night by myself, and I always feel very safe, but as you mentioned, there is a question as to whether that walk would necessarily be inviting, especially for young women by themselves commuting. So just wanted to flag that again from my personal experience. It is rather dark back there. Thank you very much for recognizing me. And
Thank you.
Yes, I give it back.
Councilor Macken, thank you. Anybody else have anything you'd like to add?
Make the motion to lay that matter back on the table.
Okay. The motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. And what is the wish of the committee? All right, the motion to adjourn, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. We adjourn.